I wonder, to the extent that you might see this as potentially intimidating to a witness, if you were in court, would you try to have them removed?
I don't think so. I think Michael Cohen can handle this himself. If I were there as his attorney or as the prosecutor, I just don't think it's going to make a difference. Michael Cohen, from what I gather, is looking at the jury. He's focused on the questions, and I don't see this really impacting his testimony.
Okay, so let's talk about his testimony and the questions he was asked, what his responses were. Obviously, when the prosecution was questioning him, we heard things we have heard before. Pretty much exactly what everyone expected Michael Cohen would say about the way in which the payments to Stormy Daniels and others were made. But when the defense got its turn at cross-examination, one question, yes or no, do you want to see Trump convicted in this case? He said, sure. He was also asked if he had said about Donald Trump in the past, did you call him a Cheetos-dusted cartoon villain? And he says, that sounds like something I might have said. How easy is this for the defense to make him look like someone with a vendetta, not a credible witness?
Well, I got to tell you, at this point, the case is pretty much over. Michael Cohen walked into this with everybody having already supported what he said on his direct. What they do with him on cross at this point is almost irrelevant. What you've got here is not just one accomplice witness, but you've got two accomplice witnesses. And as someone who's not only been a criminal prosecutor, but also a criminal defense lawyer, the problem that the defense has here is that this is just not a case of Michael Cohen versus Donald Trump. It's really a case of two cooperating witnesses, David Pecker and Michael Cohen versus Donald Trump, supported by lots of documentation, supported by other witnesses like Hope Hicks and Mr. McConaughey from the Trump Organization. So the problem that the defense has here is that they don't really have a theory of the case to argue to the jury. To say that Michael Cohen wants to see him go to jail, doesn't like him, has a vendetta, it's all kind of a lot of noise and smoke in relation to the fact of what the prosecution has proved in this case, which is a very simple situation where there was a catch and kill scheme that was created with the National Enquirer, with David Pecker, Donald Trump, and Michael Cohen, that they went after one woman to get her to sign a confidentiality agreement. They went after Stormy Daniels. They went after the doorman, Dino, who signed a confidentiality agreement. And there are all these documents that support it. If you go on the New York court website, you can actually look at every single one of these transcripts and every single one of these documents. The documents themselves almost make the case. So the problem is, if you look at Todd Blanche's initial opening statement and what his defense is, most of it's been blown away except for the fact that he's claiming that Michael Cohen is a liar. Now, that would work if it was just Michael Cohen versus Donald Trump, but it's not. It's all of these other documents, not to mention a tape recording in which Donald Trump is overheard speaking to Michael Cohen about trying to buy back the rights to one of the women whom the National Enquirer paid money to keep her silent. So you've got Donald Trump on tape. In effect, he's a witness. You've got all of these other witnesses, and you've got the defense without a real theory of their case, not something that they can argue other than to say Michael Cohen is a liar. And at this point, when they're putting Michael Cohen on, almost everything Michael Cohen says fits right into the theory that they have presented right from the beginning with David Pecker, straight through with all of the other witnesses, including books written by Donald Trump, things he said, the documents that are included. So this is, I think the defense is really at the end of the rope at this point.
Well, bring us inside the jury here. We don't talk about the jury often. We don't have cameras in the courtroom. We don't get a chance to see the reaction. Nick, during the session this morning, you referred to Michael Cohen as a liar a couple of times here. He actually took the time to apologize. He apologized to the American people for lying to them, as he said, for acting in a way that suppressed information. Does a move like that, I suspect it was recommended by his lawyers, actually impact the jury?
Oh, I would think so. I mean, look, I think the jury at this point is so sensitized to this because they've heard all of these other witnesses that Michael Cohen made a good presentation on his direct. There hasn't been anything, at best I can tell, from just reading the press reports. And I emphasize reading the press reports. I might have a completely different opinion if I were actually sitting in that courtroom and could actually view the jury, because when you're trying a case, obviously you're looking at the jury, you're trying to gauge the reaction. And we can't do that here unless we're actually in that courtroom. But based on the kind of cross that was done, I just thought it was pretty mundane, was not real powerful. And when you take it in light of the fact that he's the last witness, and everybody knew what he was going to say, and he said it, and it's all corroborated, and you've got Donald Trump on tape, and you've got all these documents, I just don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, no matter what they do on Thursday.